Understanding where and why the Mayan culture was developed and in our times transformed into practices, beliefs, or legends has been the object of countless scientific studies that are primarily based upon agricultural field excavation and unearthed artifacts. Commonly, the Mayan civilization is attributed the stigma of warlike, superstitious, or mysterious builders. But the reasons that led to its fame and made it one of the greatest civilizations of the world is what will be interesting to see in this documentary. Here, we will make the links that others have overlooked, links between historical and archaeological findings which connect those habits and customs to the people still alive today throughout Central America as well as North and South America. Let us first make the link. X. Most of us know that the rivers from North America, such as the Great Mississippi, flow south to the Caribbean. But not many of us know that the rivers of South America, such as the Great Amazon, flow up northward to the Caribbean as well. This is the spot, or X. X, or Chi, on one level represents two great earthly rivers and the place in which they meet, Chi. This concept of two things becoming one is now known as mixing. As above, so below, the Mayans also had an equivalent mixing of two rivers in the star constellations. Meanwhile, back on Earth, whomever controlled this spot reigned supreme influence over both North and South America. Now let us start. In the Central American region on the Yucatan Peninsula, many peoples and civilizations emerged, developed, prospered, and formed deep roots in the imagination of those who lived there. The region that today is known for its natural wealth and a diverse biosphere was once home to ancient peoples who mark history and are still a part of local habits and customs today. Lords of men, mediators of gods, readers of the heavens, and mighty warriors, the Mayans ruled the lands and left legacies that to this day are staples in industries of economy, cultural practices, and the mysteries of higher self-man amongst the stars. What we do know is what distant buildings, temples, and customs tell us throughout history. The Caribbean Sea in the Gulf of Mexico is a region known for its immense natural diversity, sheltering in its midst numerous parks and reserves, some still untouched by man. In this environment, it is not difficult to come across a variety of animal species, such as flamingos, cinnamon hummingbirds, leatherback turtles, and anteaters. This place, which today is considered a true world treasure, where past and present meet like the currents of an ancient river when meeting the sea, was the scene of several civilizations and peoples that for millennia developed and used the resources available in this area. Among these people, the Mayans notably forged the most enduring cultural sciences and the most impressive and ornate structures that have survived to this day. For their development and establishment in this place as a civilized, stationary, non-nomadic people, the abundance of natural resources available in this region were fundamental and indispensable to their survival and expansion. But what did these people actually accomplish and build? How did these priest kings coordinate and carry out, with the will of the American people, such elaborate blood sacrifices and rituals to the gods of nature? These questions, which remain hidden, are still mysterious to many researchers and curious people who look into the topic. We all know the Mayans developed large cities that had complex mathematical understandings that included 0 to 10, and advanced astronomical knowledge which is demonstrated by their use of 3 complex calendar systems, a solar calendar, a lunar calendar, and a universal calendar they called the Solkin. Among its most notable heritages, the city of Tikal still stands over the valleys and plains of northern Guatemala. The city, which is currently one of the largest archaeological sites in the Central American region, housed Mesoamerican societies in several areas. Located in Pitan Basin, Tikal was a center of conquest of the ancient Mayans and served as a demonstration of the power of that people. At its peak, in approximately 500 BC, the Mayan city of Tikal housed huge, enormous palaces and beautifully designed pyramids for the gods and the rulers. The greatest, the most famous king depicted on walls and ceramics in the 700s BC is Itza Khan Kawa, an ancient Mayan Yahweh. Under his name and the emblem of his dynasty, the Yahweh is known to have won the war against the city of Calak Mule in battle, and thus to have elevated the city to the conqueror of the region. The war between Tikal and Calak Mule is the unfolding of several family and didactic conflicts that dueled and fought for control over the city of Tikal. After bloody battles, Bala Khan Kawa, king of those Pilas, claimed from his brother Esau Khan Kawa the government of Tikal and post of Yahweh. Although we do not have complete accounts or traces of the battle, we know that the leader of Tikal won, taking his brother to sacrifice as an offering to the gods and to appease his people. But wait, if these are two brothers that rule separate cities, why did they go to war? How did the Mayans begin? Well, actually, the Mayan culture began way back during the middle of the late Olmec culture. Between approximately 1500 BCE and 1400 BCE, a group of different peoples called Olmecs occupied the region of Mesoamerica, developing in the tropics, specifically in the Mexican region of Tehuantepec, Tabasco, and Veracruz. The Olmec culture is considered the mother of all civilizations that later flourished. Although little is known about those who lived there, archaeological excavations that took place throughout the 20th century indicate that this people's main activity was trade and exchanges with other inhabitants of Mesoamerica. Throughout these exchanges, the Olmecs strongly influenced other peoples, and traces of their art and worship rituals can be found in regions comprising iconography, monuments, and other archaeological marks. It is possible to say that the Olmec society began to decline approximately between the years 400 BC and 350 BCE, just abandoning these great cities. Most cases, like in San Lorenzo, the first Olmec city abandoned in 900 BC, and down to the city of La Venta, whose decline corresponds to the decline of the entire civilization. Noting that 900 BCE is the start of increased mound building in North America, and 350 BCE is when Egyptian historians write of the arrival of the mysterious sea people. Both groups' arrivals seem to coincide with the departure of large Mayan populations from Central America. As of 2020, new archaeological sites were discovered and searched in the Mexican states of Tabasco and Veracruz. There they found important evidence of Olmec and Mayan societies. The traces found date from approximately 3,000 years ago, and their references were published in the scientific journal Nature of Human Behavior, whose publications are of the highest scientific content. According to studies, more than 1,000 years before the Mayan civilization reached its zenith, the Olmec civilization can be seen to have built impressive buildings intended for rituals and aligned with the position of the sun on certain dates of the year. This style of mathematical positioning will later be a centerpiece of Mayan culture. An important date in Olmec culture is May 10th. Although it is not known exactly why Olmec society chose this day of the year as a reference or holy day for their buildings and temples, but it is plausible to note that with current technology we can determine the time of sunlight in the ritualistic temples coincides with the beginning of the rains and the planting of corn. More than that, the peoples who inhabited this region progressed from a rudimentary relationship with the environment and began to transform and cultivate swamps and mountainous regions with the first forms of advanced agriculture, meaning the Mayans would drain the swamps and use the mud as a highly enriched fertilizer for their home gardens and farms. Newly drained areas would eventually become fields for planting, and later new cities will be developed and built from those former swamplands. During this period, we found in the ancient city of San Lorenzo in Mexico City, long before the Romans, the development of a large channel of aqueducts that brought water to areas with no fresh water access. This allowed more urban development in areas that were vastly affected by floods and periods of long rains or droughts. Flooding can contaminate your water source, so the newly invented aqueducts were lifesavers to many Olmec villages and residents. Most scientists before 2020 may have you think that the cities of Olmec peoples have little to do with the Mayan societies that followed them, But new science has emerged, and more researchers are arguing that there is a link between these two societies. When they analyzed the archaeological sites of San Lorenzo, whose artifacts point to a period before the Mayans, scientists realized that they have many characteristics similar to a new archaeological site found recently in the Mexican state. These studies were directed by renowned archaeologist Takashi Inomati. In an area of more than 8,500 kilometers called Aguada Phoenix is a well-known and the largest known Olmec area, which is comprised as a rectangular square, and on its edges there are elevations forming a border. And it seems to archaeological studies, both were intended for rituals. However, unlike what is observed in a typical Olmec area, where structures and artifacts point to the existence of a central ruler responsible for a ritualistic and political organization of its peoples who settled there, this area, dated to the beginning of the Mayan development, does not indicate that it is designed in such a way. Studies here indicate that the people of Aguada Phoenix enjoyed mobility, and their constructions were, at least in the beginning, smaller and closer to the ground versus the older peoples who built higher, demonstrating their status. It is therefore indicated through studies and with the advancement of excavations that the Mayan settlement found in 2020 in the region of Aguada Phoenix, despite having similarities with Olmec peoples, was populated by people who sought stability in the region without larger hierarchical political organization. Instead, it appears to be a new generation of Olmecs, ready for a new way of government. Observing such similarities with successor civilizations and the characteristics of peoples called Olmecs, some scholars indicate that their decline was due to the fusion or mixing of Olmec customs and practices with the practices and customs of other new peoples who sought settlement in Olmec areas. Since there is no evidence of a hostile takeover through conquering or defeating the Olmec civilization, what is known is that because they are an ancient and millenary culture and have hierarchical forms of organization, their traditions must have merged with those of other peoples and gave life to new civilizations, thus becoming a more influential culture in the region. From there, other people were able to settle in the region and merge with those who were already there. Decline or miscegenation between the Olmecs people left traces indicating that there was a cultural, social, and political change in the region. And from this phenomenon emerged new societies and peoples that collectively gained the name Mayan. According to archaeologists, the first Mayan cities developed during the period of Olmec culture, around 700 and 500 BC. But the oldest traces of Mayan peoples date from approximately 1800 BCE, the beginning of the so-called preclassical period that lasted until the year 300 BC. That's about 1,000 years of Olmec culture existing with Mayan culture, living together as one people. It was in this period that hieroglyphic writing began to develop, being found mainly during the period called Late Classical, approximately the 3rd century BCE. During this period, the Mayan civilization developed many city-states linked by a complex commercial network. As we have seen from its inception through the apex and the decline of this culture, the people there turned to agriculture and trade with different peoples and regions, passing through the valleys and mountains of Central America. As an example of the progress of this period, which marks the rise of the so-called Mayan culture, we can see the city of El Petén, which already shows great strength since before the Great Apex, close to the year 250 AD, and where other great cities flourished in the classical period as well. In its emergence, the Mayan peoples developed beautiful cities surrounded by agricultural fields and practiced games and rituals that became symbolic. They worshiped and venerated gods whose representatives were the priest kings themselves, or leaders of the cities called Kul Yahweh. And they commanded the relationship between men and nature, thus providing good harvests, victories in war, and economic prosperity for the region. In this way, the period of ascension was marked by the change from an iterant custom to a custom of planning and regional settlement, merging with peoples who already lived there. As a result, in the initial centuries of their Mayan civilization, the first societies established a complex economy of basic cultivation, development of hieroglyphic writing, and the structuring of cities. These, in turn, had a monumental character with grandiose temples. In the same period, further south of the city of El Patin, there is another memorable city of pre-classical Mayan society, Caminalayuhu. Located in the highlands of present-day Guatemala, the archaeological site demonstrates that a population that lived there faced the progress of the El Patin region, showing a strong hierarchical organization. Among the archaeological finds, the ornate monument of 9 stacked stone stands out. Here, a city leader is represented and shown as a symbol of great power. The city, which has reached its apex before the classical era, obtained its power by obsidian stone mining, and since the process of extracting the obsidian was difficult, it demanded the use of impressive size, skilled workforce that included the miners and laborers, but also the craftsmen and designers who shaped the stone into timeless art. In the midst of these constructions, you can see tombs dating from the time called Miraflores that demonstrates the richness of the region and the priest king. There, among the more than 300 objects removed, numerous carved stelae attract our attention, both those that had glyphs arranged in columns forming a text and those that had drawings are considered to be true artistic treasures. Stela 10, which remains an object of speculation to this day, makes us suppose that the authors of Caminalayuhu texts were the speakers of the Mayan Kul group. Meanwhile, as an example of information passed on by paintings and sculpted drawings, Stela 11 represents a character who wears a bird god mask on his head, like Birdman in later Mississippian culture. Similar to Stele 4 of Itza of the Stele of La Mahare, dating from the same period as well. The custom of erecting stelae depicting important characters, usually in combination with the text, is a style similar to our modern day statues and would soon be adopted by the lowland Mayans during the classical period as well. As the pre-classical period unfolded out on the Mayan plains, the cities of Tikal and Olmecs became more powerful and great rivals, setting the stage for two brothers, Bahala Khan Kwa and Esau Khan Wa, to meet on the battlefield as bitter rivals, as discussed earlier. Side note, notice their names. One brother is named Baal and the other is named Esau. These American names predate the European and Middle Eastern equivalents. In the classical period, there was also the intrusion of the intervention of the city of Teotihuacan into Mayan dynastic politics. In the 8th century AD, there was widespread political collapse in the central Mayan region, resulting in international warfare, abandonment of cities, and population shift to the north, now called North America, thus contributing to what will become known as the Mississippian mound building culture of North America. The post-classical period saw the rise of Chichen Itza in the north and the expansion of the aggressive Chichen kingdom in the Guatemalan highlands. The record of the last known Mayan city is from the 16th century, when the Spanish Empire came to Mesoamerica region and after a long series of campaigns saw the fall of Tenochtitlan, the last Mayan city, which fell in 1697.